Are you ready to make 2017 the year you transform your life?
You can wait for something to happen, or you're actually going to decide to go home after this weekend to do something about that. We all know that we have a very, very limited amount of time on this earth. So let's not have repeated years. Live your own life. Make the choice, make the decision for your own life. Fear is where you develop courage. There's a moment going, holy crap, all right, I'm going to do this now.
The Wellness Breakthrough is coming.
And so you actually have that choice every single morning, every single day, every single moment to decide whether you're going to live it to the fullest or not.
Join myself, Marcus Pearce, and the Wellness Guys, Damien Christoph, Lawrence Tam, and Brett Hill for 2 nights and 3 days of transformation at the Country Place, 10 acres of breathtaking rainforest in the Dandenong Ranges of Victoria, February 17 to 19.
It's each and every single one of you are going to support each other in your journey, whatever that journey is.
Couples discounts available, limited spots remaining. For all information and to watch the spine-chilling video, go to thewellnessbreakthrough.com.
TheWellnessCouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives. This is Up for a Chat with Cindy O'Mara, Karen Smith, and Kim Morrison.
Here we are, up for a chat about the hottest topics that are important to you, inspiring you to awaken the change within. I am Kim Morrison.
And I'm Cindy O'Meara.
This week we don't have the beautiful Karen with us. No. She is busy, but oh my gosh, have we got someone absolutely phenomenal to share the stage with you. So please, Cindy, introduce us to the gorgeous Kelly.
Yeah, look, as some of you know who've been listening, I became one of the 100 women of influence, and I went down to Sydney for the gala dinner. There were 700 people in the room, and I was next to Kelly. She was in the next table, and what I did while I was there, because I never had the time before, was I started to read about everybody in the 100 Women of Influence and what they did. And what I noted was that many were in the medical field, in the science field, in the technology field. But when I saw Kelly's profile and that she was in the food field, of course, I felt an affinity to her. So I'm looking everywhere for this person, what does she look like? And I thought, oh, my gosh, she's right next to me. So I made the move to go over and talk to her about what she was doing. And Kelly, I was absolutely blown away by our very brief conversation of what you're doing. So what I ended up doing from Kelly was I got a website, which is Foodladder, and we'll talk more about Foodladder. And I said, would you mind, coming on Up for a Chat and being part of it? Now, you think Kelly, in what she has done in her life, would be in her 50s or 60s. But Kelly is Kelly, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
No, that's fine. I just turned 30.
See, when you hear what this girl has done and how she thinks that everybody that's listening will be like going, well, I wasn't thinking that at 20s or 30s. So welcome, Kelly, to Up for a Chat. We are so excited. Yeah, we're so excited to hear all about what you're doing. But before we get into that, I found interesting why you are where you are. Can you give us a rundown of your life, what it was like growing up, what your family did for you as far as your travels? Would you give us a rundown on that?
Sure. Yes, and firstly, thank you so much for having me, ladies. It's great to be here. And very kind introduction. Thank you again. So, yes, my name's Kelly Mc Jannet, and I'm the CEO of Foodladder, and we're a international social enterprise based out of Sydney. Not that I spend that much time here anymore, but that's fine. When I was, I suppose I grew up in Sydney and had a lovely upbringing. My dad was a teacher, my mum was in the arts, and when I was 14, I think, we all went, the four of us, my little sister included, on this backpacking adventure around the world. At the time, I remember distinctly when Mum said, "Oh, we've got this wonderful plan. We're gonna pull you and Katie out of school for 6 months, and we're gonna backpack all around the world." I was like, "Oh, couldn't think of anything worse. All I wanted to do was hang out with my friends." But it was really, as most 14-year-olds do. But it was really interesting, and I only bring that up because I think looking back on it, it probably did have a really big impact on me and my worldview, because all of a sudden, young woman was kind of thrust into this global perspective, and having the privileged opportunity of being able to meet and see different people from all sorts of different walks of life and different backgrounds and different socioeconomic standings, and I suppose really appreciate how fortunate I was to be a young woman born in Australia and given an education. That really became very clear to me, and it imbued me with I suppose, a sense of empathy that only comes through exposure to different cultures and ways of life. Anyway, it wasn't at that point to know that it would have an impact on my career as such. But beyond that, I went into public relations. I worked in comms for a little while, which was good. And it was through that I started working for a very interesting, innovative, high-impact social movement called One Laptop Per Child. And my colleagues and I at the time kicked it off here in Australia. It was an education program for primary school-aged children that had been rolled out from MIT Media Lab in Boston throughout Africa, Paraguay, really, third world countries. And we understood that there was a need here in Australia and among our Indigenous communities to have a solution that would engage children in remote Indigenous communities in education and allow them the flexibility to, I suppose, practice their cultural practices, traditional cultural practices, without it having an impact on education. And One Laptop Per Child was a way of doing that. And it was very interesting. And obviously I was young. I was only a year out of uni. But we had great success, worked with a great team of people, and we rolled the program out through, some of the most remote communities in the country. And that was very interesting. It gave me, again, my family, there had been a lot of interaction with Indigenous culture just through my mother's work, but I hadn't up until that point had on-the-ground, hands-on exposure, if you will, to our Indigenous people. And obviously the oldest living civilization on the face of the planet, that was a huge learning curve again. I felt very honoured to be in a position where I could spend time with these extraordinary people and understand the real situation in Indigenous Australia. And it's something that only comes through, again, like most things, actual on the ground exposure. And that was really life-changing as well. And I suppose out of that, I started to take a different view on the role of charity as we know it. With One Laptop Per Child, we fell squarely in the, I suppose, charity sector, a kind of a good idea and an ambitious project. But I was left pretty frustrated and we had great support as well, I should note. But there was a frustration in me that, when I was speaking to the broader community, everyday Australians, if you will, about the work, what I'd consistently get as feedback is, "Oh, good on you, what a good thing you're doing," etc. Like it was this, I was somehow special. But in fact, I see the work that I did then and the work that we do now with Foodladder, which I'll get to, is not a nice to do or not a nice kind of, yeah, I don't really know how to explain it, not a nice to do thing, but something which is vital and just as important as any piece of work that needs to be done, if you will. And there are lots of rigor, academic rigor coming out around the implications of socioeconomic development on, say, GDP in countries 30 years down the track. And I think being able to look at the social change work through the lens of what impact does this have in a holistic way on, say, an economy, shifts the focus out of this kind of work as a nice to do and more as a vital that needs really good market-driven solutions and strong economic frameworks if it's to be successful. So so that was my time there, and then beyond that, I spent a lot of time in. Sorry.
Before you move on from the laptop one, you would have had to have had money. So how did you go about? Like a laptop's not cheap, and with the amount of children that probably needed that laptop, how did you go about finding that finance for that?
Well, the beautiful thing about the one laptop per child project is that the XO laptop was specifically designed to be low cost. So it cost about $100. So we, per unit, they're a solar-powered system. I worked very closely, my colleagues and I, with the federal government, and there was funding that came through that, and it was implemented through schools, etc. But this work is interesting, and the funding model has to be very carefully considered if it's to be successful. I think that was another real main driver for me off the back of my experience with one laptop per child, was about moving into the social enterprise space, which is how I came to begin Foodladder. It was about understanding that if a social change model is going to be viable, it has to be financially sustainable as well. And that's how we came to start Foodladder about 5 years ago now.
Yeah, and when you were telling me about what you were doing, I thought this is what every community needs, not just, it's about food security, but this is about every community needs this, where the way our agriculture is going at the moment, we're looking at non-ecological agriculture, and what you're doing is bringing into food deserts and places where food security isn't good, you're bringing in ways that they can make their own food, even with little resources. So would you like to explain exactly what you're doing with Foodladder and where it started and why you began it?
Yeah, sure. I suppose it was after the one laptop per child period that I went to India, and that was really interesting as well, because for all of those who have been to India, the sheer scale of the place and the scale of the population is immense, especially when, I'm from Sydney and it's like a sleepy town by comparison to some of the main cities in India. So that really, I suppose, again, imbued in me an understanding of the population growth that we're seeing globally. Foodladder is the only organisation in the world using commercial hydroponic technology to address food security and create social enterprises. So what does that actually mean? We've designed a system which is a combination of greenhouse technology, hydroponic technology, solar panels, etc., that grows high commercial quantities of produce in just about any location. So the veggies that we buy from Woolies, most of which are grown hydroponically, we're doing exactly that, except we are putting systems into communities that gives them jobs and their own source of local produce. So again, just through my experience working with Indigenous communities, I knew the huge issue of food security and what that was doing to nutrition, diabetes, etc. Really serious health problems that we're seeing in our remote communities. Most of that comes from a lack of access to nutritious food, firstly, and secondly, a lack of education and engagement in healthy eating. And for those who have been out to remote communities, it's easy to see how the issue comes about. I think I'm very conscious of what I eat, but even in some of our remote communities, it's very difficult to get your hands on good quality vegetables. So a big part of the issue is actually lack of access.
Kelly, can I just interrupt you there a second, sweetheart? You mentioned about, how old were you when you went to India first time?
24.
Okay. And I mean, my kids were 9 and 7 the first time they went. And I think the first time I went, it was quite a shock culturally, particularly from a poverty point of view. One of the things that shocked me the most, though, and with you being older at 24, and probably disturbed me more than anything because of my awareness around food, was just the vastness of fast food takeaway kind of outlet, the westernization thing that was occurring in some of the prominent, or all of the prominent cities. Where did it click for you? Like, I'm really intrigued as to where it clicked for you to go from you're obviously, traveling, and you obviously went through third world type of countries. What was the click for you to want to drive you to create Foodladder? Like, I still haven't heard the connection there.
Sure. It was a numbers thing, right? So what really shocked me was the numbers of people living in poverty. And I believed that there was an opportunity to engage those people. Largest percentage of the global population is in need of good economic support. It was the numbers of people that were disenfranchised, living in poverty, with very little opportunity to escape it, and connecting that with what does this mean for the world? I think something that we suffer a lot from as a society is the mentality that if you're fortunate enough to be born in a first world country, the problem of poverty is not yours, it's somebody else's, and people talk a lot about luck. I mean, it is just luck, I think, from my perspective, to be fortunate enough to be born in a place, like Sydney and a place like Australia. It's really a matter of luck. So for those that aren't so lucky, I don't think there are enough viable models and frameworks to support strong economic growth and sustainable social development. So it was really like any strong business idea, there's crass language to use in relation to Foodladder. But, if you want to look at it from a market perspective, we've got, we're going to have another 30 million people to feed by 2030. It's about developing a platform or a business model that engages those people sustainably, and it's in everybody's best interest, because we need to be able to support the global population. It's very important for economic development. And, as we're seeing today, people need to be supported in a way which is financially sustainable, or they need to have opportunities that are financially viable.
It's just remarkable for a young woman. Sorry, Cindy.
No, you go.
I just love hearing. I mean, obviously you had a passion for business. You got your, I'm assuming, an MBA. You've obviously studied. You obviously had that before you went there. So your antennae, without even realizing it, was already up. But then to be moved from the head into the heart, and then to join the two is actually remarkable for a young person. It really is. I really admire you for that. And I just want to ask you, was there a poignant moment whilst you were there that you stood there and went, oh my gosh, I've got to do something here? Or was it a transitional thing, or was it gradual? Like, what made you go, I have to do something?
Yeah, I suppose it was probably a cumulative effect of experiences that brought the pieces together. But I do remember being I was up in Rishikesh in Rajasthan with my mum and my sister and doing a lot of yoga. That probably helped at the time. And I remember I had a little notebook and I was furiously like nutting out this business model. I was saying to Mum, look, like, look at this, like, just bear with me here. Kind of look at the opportunity and the numbers, and surely I could get funding for something like this. We could make something work here. And I think I don't know what she thought, but to be honest, but there's been a lot of it's been a lot of passion behind it. It's been my colleague Alex Sheed and I have been doggedly pursuing this for 5 years now. We knew that there was something that really needed to be done, and we set about doing it. And the social enterprise as a model is very new in Australia, really. And I'm starting to see a shift now. 5 years ago, it was like no one even understood what you were talking about when you talked about financially sustainable social work or social business. People just didn't really understand the concept, and we've had to be, very, very single-minded about ensuring that what we deliver is best practice, and that's been successful. And I'm very lucky to be able to work with good people at Foodladder that have ensured success around that. But yeah, I think it was a transition, but yeah, it was a cumulative effect. And really as well working a lot of work with the government and understanding the huge job the government has to do as well in delivering or supporting people and having the right frameworks in place, being able to work hand in hand with the government to create something which actually does work on the ground. Because the huge leap from what actually works in a remote Indigenous community right through to what actually works for policy and how that supports policy is complex as well. So there's a myriad of complexities in it. It's not easy by any stretch, and the social enterprise space needs really good people. I mean, it needs best minds in business as far as I'm concerned. So, I'm really happy to see social enterprise being a part of the broader discussion, business discussion. And yes, you mentioned the MBA. I'm doing my MBA at Sydney University and at the moment part-time. And there's a lot of discussion amongst academics and our cohorts around creating businesses that not only are financially sustainable but create meaningful social change. And it's a really exciting place to be in. It's getting more and more exciting because now people actually know what you're talking about when you mention social enterprise. But I think that it will become a lot more normalised because it really has to, I think, into the future.
Yeah. You know what? Social enterprise is something that everybody should be thinking about. Not, it should not just be on this is all about me. It should be about our community, and whether that community is an Indigenous community in Australia or whether it's another community overseas or whether it's in your backyard. I think it's so important. And I remember when I was speaking with you, you told me about a community up in Arnhem Land,
yes.
And the community is Ramenging. Is it Ramenging or some?
Ramingining.
Yeah, so many ing.
Yes.
I had watched a documentary the week before this. This is why I think meeting you was just an impact in my life. I had watched on my way home from Perth, which I think was days before I met you, a documentary called Another Country. And the documentary is about the havoc that is caused by superimposing a new culture over an old culture. So their beautiful culture, the Aboriginal people's culture, and we threw onto them our new culture and the consequent clashes, about many things that were happening in their lives. And the fact that what I saw in this documentary was all revolved around the grocery store, which opened at a certain time. They were hungry if it wasn't open. The food was white flour, white sugar, white cereals, white salt, white everything. And yet that had nothing to do with their culture. And when you told me that one of the places where you are doing what you're doing with Foodladder, creating food and food security within that area, I just felt, wow, this is great. This is what these communities need. They not only need a bit of modernisation as regards to creating food, but they also need to look at their culture. And in the documentary, they do chase a kangaroo, and they do boil that kangaroo. Or sorry, Kimmy, I'm sorry if I'm upsetting you, Kimmy, but they actually barbecue the kangaroo, I think it is. And
as long as it's not alive.
They had clubbed it to death.
Yeah.
Now they had clubbed it to death. But can you tell us what community you started in around the world? Why did you choose that community, and what did you do?
Yeah, so we predominantly we work in India and the NT at the moment. We had done a bit of work in Australia, but not as much work in the remote communities. We really kind of kicked off in India, the slums of India, and very, very high impact. And I suppose the choice around that was for us at Foodladder, we wanted to prove the concept in arguably the most difficult part of the world to do anything. It's not an easy place, and really have some really high impact. So that was quite a few years ago now, obviously the inception of Foodladder, and we designed our first system, freighted it into India, which was challenging, implemented it, and lo and behold, it worked. You know, the production was really good, and we were creating jobs, and it was a really, really big success. And from there, we set up manufacturing distribution out of India, which we now have expanded significantly. We've got systems supplementing the diets of over 4,000 children with food ladders on the rooftops of their schools. If you've been to India, just about every rooftop is flat. So unlike Australia, where we have lots of land, in India there's very little land, and we've been able to utilise the rooftops of schools to implement hydroponic greenhouses that are growing food for kids. And I just got back a week and a half ago, actually, from the opening of another beautiful system, and all the children were lined up at the front of the school when we arrived and clapped us as we arrived. And, I mean, there were tears rolling down just about everyone's faces. It was a pretty amazing moment to see the kind of impact and scale we've been able to have in a place like India over such a short period of time. It's been astounding. Those communities, we picked them based on the need. There's two critical, I suppose, drivers that help us identify communities. One is the need, and the second is the level of community engagement. We don't have a failed project. We have no failed projects, and there's a number of reasons why that's the case, but one of them is because we know that a community's engagement is critical to the long-term success of a project. So ensuring that there's the right level of buy-in, that we do all our things right in terms of training and support, and provide them with the tools they need to run the social enterprise successfully ongoing, because each Foodladder becomes a business in and of itself. We take care of the infrastructure funding, but then from there, all the produce grown through the system is sold into the local community to increase nutrition and finance the very small ongoing operating costs of the system and employment for the people that run it. So it's a really simple model that works very, very well. And then in Australia, we have worked exclusively with our partners on the ground. So they're community partners that have Alpa and JobFind at the moment, who have really strong track records in community engagement. And that's very important, because from Foodladder's perspective, we could not presume to be able to do everything really well. And community engagement is very, very important, being able to understanding the unique and very, very specific cultural sensitivities in any one community. There might be 5 kilometres apart and yet vastly different. And it's very important when you're working with communities to understand the drivers and needs of those communities. So our on-the-ground partners are very important, because while I can't always, I can't be everywhere at once, and, I might be in India, but I know that our community in Catherine is being managed really well by our community partners. Again, it was around identification of need and a real strong want in the community to increase nutrition and have their own social enterprise, and we've gone from there.
I'm absolutely blown away by what you do. And I think that it's every community that needs this, Kelly. Sorry, you're going to be very busy for the rest of your life, the rate you're going.
That's the idea. I know. That's the thing, isn't it? I mean, there's a huge need. Arguably it's an endless need. The social enterprise part of it is really tricky, and people often ask, why hasn't this been done before? And it's really tricky. It's not easy. But we've got a huge amount of experience in social enterprise development, and I think, that's a really vital importance. And we've obviously got brilliant people, great hydroponics managers, and more and more as we expand. Thank God for the internet and technology. We are able to do more and more remotely, and more over online training modules and so forth, which is a really big deal. And I think, we wouldn't be able to do this 20 years ago for that reason. So that allows us to keep our head office operations nice and light, and it allows us to invest where we should be investing, which is in systems and system rollout.
Kelly, can I ask you?
Yeah, I think.
Cindy. Sorry.
You and I got started. I just want to talk.
No, sorry. I was hoping, if it was all right with you, just to step out of the model, step out of what we've been talking about, and just tell people who haven't been to India, give them a sense of what you saw. Give them a sense of what you think is needed, because to me, India is just it is a metaphor for all third world countries. It's a classic, and because of it is the beautiful thing about India to me is it is the land of extremes. It is as wealthy as it is poor. It's as hilly as it is flat. It's as dull as it is colourful. And what I would love for you to explain is the essence of India and why, or what you saw, what you think from your eyes that they really, if you could wave a magic wand, what do you think that they really need apart from Foodladder? What else do you think that they could really contribute to a country like India?
I don't know if you've read a book called White Tiger, but it speaks to the mentality of, I suppose, the common man in India, man or woman, and the people have an amazing attitude. There is no sentiment around, poor me, or there's none of that. India is an amazing country and full of wonderful people, and there's a huge amount of opportunity in India. And I think, you see that it's reflected in the attitudes of people. White Tiger is a book that really sums that up quite nicely, I think. What did I see in India? I think you're right. I think it is a metaphor for a lot of third world countries, and it really, it's, you see the scale of population growth and the extent of poverty, quite unlike anywhere else. I mean, the slums, not many people as tourists actually get into the slums, but it's pretty extraordinary to think I still struggle to understand how people survive in those conditions. Women have to it's dangerous. It's really dangerous. Health stuff. I mean, the idea of having to give birth, you know, it's a really, really big issue. And out of that level of poverty, all sorts of terrible things happen to kids and women that we would never really be able to know about, because, you know, it's not recorded. There's no one there keeping an eye on things. It's lawless, you know. So yeah, that's really the far end of the spectrum. It's really a huge challenge, and
it's pretty. It gets into your blood, it gets into your core, it gets into your essence of own self. And I found India an incredibly humbling country to visit, but also at the extreme, my husband played cricket for New Zealand, and cricket is like a religion over there, if you like. And just to give you an example of the value of life, like whilst it's so revered on one level, there's also an acceptance of how it is. And for instance, we were watching an international, one-day international at Pune in Nagpur, and the stadium had not quite been completed at that point, and we're all watching the game, and I was sitting down where the wives and girlfriends were sitting, and there was only a couple of us there, but all of a sudden there was this kind of commotion on the other side of the field, and basically the concrete hadn't set, and they'd overfilled the room, and anyway, the whole part of the stadium collapsed, killing 11 people. And I'm not kidding you, within 30 minutes the game carried on after. It kind of still stuns me to this day. But what I'm trying to get to here, you touched on the point that they don't wallow in their positions, or it's not like they sit there wishing away their lives away. It's kind of like a get up, get on mentality. What's your thoughts around young women in India? Like, do you see an opportunity for women there coming through with meeting women like you? Are you an inspiration for some of them? Are you a connection for a lot of young women coming through? Is there something bigger than Foodladders there for you as an opportunity and for them?
Yeah, I think India is still, you know, there's a lot of work, and again, there's a huge divide between, say women who are living in poverty versus women who have had the benefit of an education in India. I think it's one of those countries where you really see that divide in pretty sharp contrast. Yeah, I think the universities and academic fields are very, very active. There's a lot of active work being done by women around petitioning for social change and whatnot, and from men in young men in the same position. I think India can teach everyone a lot, you know, around not being complacent and not taking anything for granted. You know, it's always a bit of a shock for me when I come back from India to Australia, and there's a lot of complaining that happens in Australia by Australians, some of my friends included sometimes, and I can't help but think, you know, I don't think we've got that much to complain about. I mean, the fact that we have access to healthcare and, you know, access to education is just such a huge, you know, not to mention sanitary water and whatnot. I mean, it's just so immense. I think that it's important for everyone to understand how huge that is. You know, it's massive. It's a really, really big thing. And yeah, I think that that's why you don't have that complacency or poor me attitude in a place like India or any third world, you know, in some of the third world countries that have these issues, because it's survival. It's you know, it comes down to the individual and the individual's ability to get up, get on with it, and make a life for him or herself. And I think it's always good to remember that, because you know, we've got a huge head start in Australia in that respect, and I think that puts the onus on us as well to look beyond Australia, to look globally at the challenges which affect the globe. Because I think until we start seeing the issues of the globe as our own, we're never ever going to see any change in terms of, you know, poverty alleviation, food security, climate change. We act often as humans too late, and I think in Australia we have the benefit of being able to have a lot of academic discussion about these issues, but the reality is that they are very real for the vast majority of people, and I think we'd do a lot better as a country if we were able to see beyond our own borders.
And we need to fix within our borders as well, which is, you know, one of the things that you are doing. And, you know, you're doing it for India and you're doing it for our Indigenous people. But I believe that every household should have what you're doing.
Mm.
We need to get, I was looking at a picture the other day, and it was a picture of walls filled with lettuces and herbs and things like that for homes.
Yes.
So I think that it's not just about us helping those groups of people, because they've lost their ability to ecologically harvest foods or ecologically grow foods, which they did. The Indians were unbelievable ecological farmers. And I would love you to meet Dr. Vandana Shiva, who is all about what you're doing. And I think you guys should catch up when you're next. Yeah, she's in Punjab, and she's all about getting rid of the chemicals and the agriculture that's happening at the moment and bringing in this ecological agriculture. But I think that what you're doing should come into mainstream as well, not just for the social enterprise that we believe social enterprise is. I believe that we need to get our culture back, and we need to start back with our own social enterprise as well. So I think you've got a lot of work to do in here as well. Within borders.
We do. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, obviously for me, I spent most of my career working with Indigenous communities, and it's huge. It's huge. And I mean, the outcomes with Foodladder and our remote Indigenous communities speak for themselves. The appetite with which this model has been adopted by Indigenous people that we work with is just fantastic. You know, there's a little video on our website, which I'd encourage you to check out, which has Yolngu guys. So Yolngu Martha are the people of the community of Ramingining speaking, he's speaking in dialect, because this is a traditionally owned community, inside a Foodladder as he's harvesting crops of tomatoes, capsicums, lettuces, and he's talking, whether it's translated into English with subtitles, about how 40 years ago his ancestors were actually growing produce in remote communities, which isn't something that many people know. And he said he feels so empowered because for the first time in his life he's got the opportunity to have a job that really means something to him, that makes him feel good. You know, when we all want that, a job that he wants to do. He gets up in the morning and he really, really wants to go and work in the Foodladder. And more than that, it's what his ancestors did. So in a bizarre way, Foodladder is actually giving back to some remote communities a sense of ownership, that has been taken away. I mean, this is the first time in decades that remote communities that we're working with have been able to grow their own produce. Aside from the huge environmental impact of freighting food into these communities thousands of kilometres, forget about that for a minute. Just the fact that there's actual, work inside the community that is empowering, and these guys go back to their families and boast to their children about, how what they did all day at work, and then the kids go to the shop and there's the food that Dad grew. It's very simple, but it's palpable, the impact that has on people's happiness. And what that means for economic development in remote communities as well, aside from the nutrition and aside from the environmental benefits of locally produced food as well.
Kelly, have they lost touch with the essence of what it is to eat well in India? Do you think, like, I'll just give you an example. When we were over there, Jacob got quite ill on eating something and was violently throwing up. And I've shared this before, but the mothers, the women that were there, because the men all went out and had a cigar on the deck, there was still very much that male female kind of, where your place is kind of thing. But the mothers, the aunties and the grandmothers all took Jacob into the room. They asked my permission, and he kind of like looked at me a little bit worried. Now you got to remember he was about 7 or 8, and he laid down on this bed, and they palpated him, they made up a tincture, they rubbed it onto his pulse points, they used an Ayurvedic tea, and then at one point, I've shared this before, but I looked down at Jacob thinking the poor thing, and he looked at me and gave me a wink, like, this isn't all bad, like, do you think there's any chance, hopefully not, of losing that culture and tradition around that innate knowing of what they know with the land, the plants, the animals? Like, do you feel like yourself personally looking in with your eyes that there's the chance of losing that, or do you think there's a chance of enhancing it?
Well, no, our real thing is just providing access to produce. I mean, the communities that we're working with have lost that through whatever means, whether it's, say, Indigenous communities where the kind of produce isn't available or the price is too high, the quality's not great, through to communities in India where, the communities that we work with, the kids, for example, the 4,000 kids I mentioned previously, I mean, they'd be lucky to eat veggies once a month, and now we're able to get them eating veggies every day. So it's about increasing access to communities who don't have access. Now, what the communities actually do with what produce they grow, it's entirely up to them. And in Catherine, for example, we're seeing some traditional crops being grown in the hydroponic system, which is fantastic, because one of the challenges of these places that we work with, and it should be noted that there is a high correlation in poverty and those communities most affected by climate change, because often we're talking about traditional farming areas, etc., that with climate change are not able to enjoy the same kind of outputs that they did previously. So by having a controlled hydroponic system, we're able to ensure that all year round. So I think it only works to enhance tradition. I think it gives people access to food that they know and love, and can grow produce all year round, and what they cook with it, what they make with it, how they use it, it's entirely up to them. And we're seeing, certainly in the remote communities, more and more crops being used for those purposes as well. So that's great.
So you don't feel like they're losing their culture or their understanding of the land, or that how the Aboriginals know when to pick certain things or when certain fish are coming through. Like, you don't feel like they're losing that. It's just accessibility as far as you're concerned.
No, it's just enhancing. It's one doesn't preclude the other. At the moment, it's just about having, it's light touch. It's really just about increasing access to produce.
Love it.
It is, Kelly, if people go on your Instagram, they can see what you are doing, which is Foodladder. I just think while people are listening to us, it'd be lovely for them to kind of get a concept of what you're doing, because I remember when you were talking to me, it wasn't until you showed me the video that I went, that's what you're doing. So if people are like going, I'm not really understanding what a Foodladder is, they can go on your Instagram right now, which is Foodladder, and follow you and see what you're doing in that ramaging jing 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 place.
Yeah. Absolutely. And also our Facebook page as well. We are very active on Facebook as well, and on the Foodladder Facebook page. And on the Foodladder Facebook page as well, you'll have access to those videos that I mentioned. So, which is really nice to see, and lots of stuff from India as well.
And how do you get finance for this? I know we talked about this, that it's important to have, you know, everything in place in this social enterprise. So for this, for Foodladder, how are you, is it people give you money? Does the government help you in each country? How are you getting finances for this?
Yeah, it varies. We have some really long-standing, wonderful philanthropic supporters, by and large individuals who just love what we do and have always been there with us. And the systems in the Northern Territory have been funded to date through the federal government, where there's a real, desire to create economic development, obviously, and address nutrition. And we've had funding through the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, the direct aid, very coveted direct aid program in India. But, we're always looking for support. So you can obviously donate through the website, which is www.foodladder.org. And we're very grateful for whatever support, we receive, because it certainly all helps. And as you touched on before, ladies, the market or the need is so immense. There's a lot of work we need to do. So, we're very, very, very grateful for the support that we get.
Kelly, what's your big goal? Sorry, Cindy. Sorry, we're both overthinking it. But yeah, what's the big picture, the big goal?
We'll ask the big goal after I've asked this small question.
Okay.
And the question is that, all right, I look at it and I go, I want one for my farm.
Yes.
And do you also sell to people like me who would love someone who has already done this? It obviously comes like an IKEA pack.
Not quite. It's a little bit more complicated than that. And it's a big thing, this is community by community type thing. So, I mean, to be honest, we aren't really focused on the retail market at the moment, because we are, like I said before, we're a very small team and we're very focused on creating social impact. So for this point, certainly at this point, we are just really focused on rolling out to communities that don't have access to produce, so that we can address that. But certainly in the long term, I don't know, 3-5 years, it would be great to have a retail, a mums and dads home solution, if you will, Foodladder. It's get a surprising amount of people wanting one, but at this point, I think we've got our work cut out for us, just in creating the impact in the communities.
Don't you think it'd be another form of funding? Is that, I don't know how big the operation is for building and things like this, but it would be, you're looking for people to fund this, like that you guys are funding it, and then the community continues it. But if you are retailing it, you are creating an income for Foodladder. So
yeah, I know it sounds very easy, but it's a huge amount of work to, it's taken us 5 years to build up to the point now where we can roll out systems direct into communities. And I suppose we're not really at the point of diversification yet, because we are flat out, just creating strong social impact. But and there are quite a few retail solutions on the market. You can buy for the everyday farm owner or enthusiast. There are some great solutions, such as like container gardens, etc., that you can get that are available on the market that are probably more appropriate. But ours is, our whole model really is social enterprise development. So we want to be creating employment for disadvantaged people as well. But no, certainly if that's what you're after, I think there are quite a few retail applications available. But at the moment we have to, as tempting as it is, and as many people have asked me, I think it's really important at the moment that we just prove that we can have really long-standing impacts in nutrition and employment generation.
You're amazing. You really are. Just, Now, Kimmy, you had that big picture question.
Well, often we start off these visions or these dreams with a picture in our heads of how it could look. I'm just wondering for you, Kelly, has it gone beyond your wildest dreams, or is it on track? Like, how's it shaped for you? And if you could wave a magic wand, how would it look?
Yeah, I think we're on track. Say we're on track. I always want things to go faster, but I think we're going pretty quickly. I think if I could wave a magic wand, it's really for us about working hand in hand in Australia with the government. Just about every remote Indigenous community needs one of these, so that's my number one focus, and to do that successfully with the federal government, and that's the path that we're on at the moment. So I hope to enjoy a long-standing relationship with the government to make that a reality, and that would be a dream come true in Australia. And then internationally, again, there's a huge need for what we do. If you think about it from the perspective of, say, disaster relief, right through to social enterprise development in the third world and beyond. So really, again, just remaining focused on huge replication in India, which is what we're doing now, proving a saturation throughout India as a country. I hope that really puts us in a position where we can start again working alongside the likes of the UN, the Gates Foundation, in a way that has huge impacts in the third world as well. So that's my dream. And if I could wave a magic wand, that's what I'd create. But I think we're doing brilliantly, and I'm very proud of our successes. And at this rate, I don't see how I'm sure we'll get there.
I'm absolutely positive you're going to get there, Kelly. I don't know why you're not on the front page of the Australian. Have you been on Australia Story yet?
Not yet.
Right. I know one of the producers. I'm sending her your way. You need to be on
fabulous.
People need to know about you, Kelly. It's like, I just feel that if people knew what you were doing, there would be so much more support. And this is what angers me. We see on the front page of newspapers just stuff that is not social enterprise, is not helping the world. It just puts everybody in a negative perspective about what's happening on the planet, as opposed to the most wonderful things that are happening on the planet, as what you're doing with Foodladder. And I just think more people need to know about you. So hopefully, with Up for a Chat, we can get you out there and get more people seeing what you're doing. And maybe there'll be other countries that knock on your door and say, we need this Foodladder, because the pictures are amazing, what you're doing.
Yeah.
And
I love the Instagram.
It's good. And that community in Arnhem Land, what you've done for them after you, I don't know if you've seen the documentary, but watch that documentary, and it's all around that silly food market. And I shouldn't say that, because how they get their food is the hardest part. It comes across on a barge. It comes only once every, I can't remember how often it came, but it comes either fortnightly or something like that. So it's not even fresh. It's all. So what you've done for that community, and I hope they add on to the documentary so we can see that there is hope.
Oh, hello.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
There you are.
There, sorry.
No. Kelly, can you tell us how people can get in touch with you? Is it donation? Are you crowdfunding? Are you selling yourself? What exactly are you doing? How do we help you?
Look, we would be very grateful for donations, which you can make through the website, which is www.foodladder.org. That really, really helps us. It just helps us get great people. It helps us commission research. Really important. I mean, all the infrastructure funding we raise independently, so it's really about bolstering our organisation so that we can deliver on huge scale. So that would be absolutely fantastic, and we welcome any contribution. And yeah, certainly like us on Facebook so that you can receive up-to-date news and photos as systems go in and harvests happen around the world. It's a really amazing platform to kind of appreciate the scale of the work and the individual stories of the people that we're providing employment to as well. So that really brings it home. And yeah, I hope that, you know, in a year's time, or maybe even off the back of this little podcast, Foodladder is more of a household name, and we're able to work even closer with the Australian government to have a really big impact here.
Definitely. And does your fiance work within the Foodladder, or his?
No, he's very busy. He's an architect.
So does he design the Foodladders?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. He's the Foodladder systems are all designed by hydroponic experts.
Yeah.
But he's an incredible emotional support. So he does have his role. He has his role. Don't you worry about that.
I'm sure he does. It was absolutely a delight to meet you two at that 100 Women of Influence. If nothing else comes of that 100 Women of Influence for me, it was meeting you and seeing what you're doing and having you on this podcast.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I just want to reiterate too, Kelly, you're just amazing, an amazing young woman. And, you know, Cindy was talking about you before, and she said, gosh, I wasn't thinking like this at these young ages. But I have to say to you, you probably don't realize how extraordinary Cindy is. She has a massive following. She is a thinker that totally goes beyond the norm, and she's certainly a trailblazer in what it means to eat real good quality food that actually comes through culture and tradition, or honouring the land, or appreciating that we can do it without chemicals, and also sustainability throughout communities. So, you know, for the two of you to meet, there's no accidents. I'm sure there was hundreds, if not thousands of women and people in that room. There was no accident you two met.
There are none. You're exactly right.
It's a privilege, and I just want you to know I am a marriage celebrant. I love Sydney. I'm just thrown. No, I love it. Oh,
I'll be sending you an email.
Married the best of them in New Zealand and Australia. A lot of celebrities. So,
Kelly, can I just say, on behalf of India, has a very special place in my heart, and it's a place that I've visited a number of times. My husband's been there well over 20 times, if not 25 times.
Wow.
He is very much a well-known icon over there, and if you ever needed someone that could support you in him, he has lots of doors he can open over there for you.
Oh,
so
fantastic!
I'm going to sell him to you over the phone now.
Please do. No, great. No, that would be great. We need as many supporters as we can get. So I'd appreciate that. That would be great.
Oh, there'd just be some incredibly influential Indian, if not politicians, but certainly people of dignity and people that could help you, I'm sure. Danny may have a way to support you on that, and he's such a great soul, and he has such a soft spot for India as well. And as I said, I know India is just the reflection of all the other third world countries, and even back to our own Indigenous cultures here in Australia. So can I just say congratulations, and I can see why you're in, both of you two. I actually feel incredibly humbled to have you both on the line. And I'm sure I speak on behalf of all our listeners that to have two of the top 100 most influential women in Australia in one call, I don't think any of us will really be able to pinch ourselves until we've completed this. So to both of you, especially you, Cindy, my dearest friend, and for introducing us to the gorgeous Kelly, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Kimmy. I think every one of those women were. It was an interesting evening. It was a very inspirational evening, and every woman that I met, I was absolutely blown away by. And I must say that during the evening, there were two male speakers, and one of the male speakers was from Westpac, and I actually ended up getting his speech. He had some amazing things to say about women and their role and what they're doing in society. And he was absolutely brilliant. The second speaker, I don't know, Kelly, if you agree with me on this one, was the head of Fairfax. And I believe that he did a very political speech that was uncalled for. That's the way I see it. Very uncalled for. So that was my only disappointment in that whole evening was him. But, there was one other woman there that I would love to interview, and she was 100 and, Kelly, was she 102?
Yes. She's extraordinary. Yeah.
Kimmy, she was a ballerina, and
wow.
She was, and you should have seen how she was dressed. She was dressed like, I don't know, thoroughly modern Millie, back in the 20s, that type of dress. And she was such poise, such dignity, and what she had contributed to the arts and to ballet and to the Australian Ballet was phenomenal. You might know about it because Kim's daughter is a prima ballerina.
Mm.
Oh, wow.
Mm.
Oh, fantastic. Well, yes, I'll have to look her name up, but she was amazing. Well, no, it was so nice to have such a strong celebration of female achievement in Australia, and such a dynamic group of people under the same roof. It was great. It was really wonderful, and it's wonderful that we're able to carry that on here as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, yeah, I agree.
Get it out there, and that's what we do with Up for a Chat, Kelly. So if you at any time want to come back on Up for a Chat,
I'd love to.
Come back. Yeah, and tell us what you're doing and where you're up to and what communities you're in and what help you need. We would absolutely love to have something to do with your social enterprise.
Fantastic.
Yeah, in spreading. Wonderful.
Congratulations. Any last words from you, Kelly?
Just thank you, and I'm really honoured to be able to be here having this conversation about such an exciting time in business and social enterprise development. And I think with this kind of energy behind us, I think we'll be able to do wonderful things.
Yeah.
No, you won't be able to do more wonderful things. You're already doing amazing things. You'll just do more amazing things. So well done. Look, I'm sure all of our beautiful listeners agree with Cindy and I today that today has been not only mind-blowing but incredibly inspiring. Inspiring is probably the greatest word. And so if you've enjoyed this podcast, then please make sure you go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/up for a chat. Post all your comments and feedback there, or any thoughts that you might be able to help us to help Kelly do what she's doing so beautifully. Or you can go to thewellnesscouch.com/up for a chat and post your comments and feedback there too. Please don't forget, if you want to come and have some of these rabbit hole amazing conversations where we may be able to set up something whilst we're hiking through the mountains in New Zealand or in Africa the year after next, and you'd like to join the three of us on our quest to solve the world's problems whilst hiking through exquisite countryside, then please also go to awakenthechangewithin.com. But apart from that, thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Kelly. I'm sure everyone will agree that we are all part of the ripple effect that's changing the world. We look forward to seeing you next week, guys. Take care.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.